gain for learning how elite athletes have success? Can't you take advantage of this knowledge to understand why the elite athlete often struggles after the game has ended? Today on Essential Leadership Skills with TEDx speakers, we unlock this secret. Join Director of Operation Glenn Daniels and his guest, the CEO and founder of the Athlete Book, Rayn Drummond.
This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.
Good morning, everyone. You know, it doesn't matter what time of day it is. It's always morning for me. We want to welcome Rayn Drummond to our podcast this day, afternoon, evening. Hi, Rayn. How are you?
I'm doing well, Glenn. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for having and producing your TEDx talk. I think I tell a lot of folks the reason why I decided to start using TEDx speakers for these because they have a passion for what they're doing. And that's going to come out as we discuss your TEDx talk. But before we even get there, I have a question for you. Can you share with us what is unique, powerful, and a need to know about either you or your TEDx talk or your company, your organization? What's unique, powerful? Do we need to know about it?
Well, you know, you started this off about passion, and our whole talk is about identifying your passion. And really it's tailored towards the college athlete, because the college athlete is passionate about their sport. Otherwise, they wouldn't go on. Only 7% do. I think I mentioned in my talk, play at the college level. Only 2% play at the Division I level. And you need to have passion and vision to get there. And so the message is, how do you extend that passion and how do you extend that vision to what you're going to do next? And
so you bring that passion into your company then, that same level of passion.
We do. And it's also a process and an experience to get that,
okay,
to find out what is next.
Okay. So now in college, you had that passion because you played soccer. Is that correct?
No, it was lacrosse, actually.
Lacrosse, and your wife plays soccer. Okay. Yeah.
My wife played soccer. That's right.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So that is how that kind of developed there. So let me ask you this question though, just so people can kind of get to know you a little bit. When you decided to do this TED Talk, when you said, okay, this is the subject I want to do it on, and this is what I want to create, and this is how I want to go about getting it. Can you tell us about that journey from either how you created it, what caused you to put it all together? How did you go about the time period before you actually got on stage? What was that whole journey like up until the day you got on the stage?
It was a journey. You know, I'd spoken in front of groups and teams and internship programs before in the past. I was like, oh, I got this. This is going to be fine. And, you know, when I was asked to do it from the time until I did it, COVID hit. So we kind of pushed it back a few months. So I said, okay, I've got time. And what I did in kind of preparation is I would go on really long walks. I live across the street from a high school. And what I would do is I would listen to audiobooks that were kind of in the same vein of what, you know, my purpose, passion, and pursuit and message was going to be, just to look for some influence. The two that come to mind that really stuck with me during this time period was Angela Duckworth's book on grit. And I also listened to Benjamin Hardy, Personality Isn't Permanent. And the third one, oh God, I'm blanking on the title, but it was basically on how to deliver a TEDx talk. And so what I would do is I would walk and I would listen, but then when you're walking and you're listening to these authors, I would then have my own thoughts on how it pertains to what I'm talking about. And so I would stop and I would dictate into my phone on Evernote ideas. And so after doing that for months, I ended up having more than I could have used. Do you hear feedback noise?
I don't hear feedback, but I hear just a little bit. The audio's clipping a little bit. But
okay. Well, anyway, we'll push through. I was able to. I had all these notes, and then it was almost like I had too much. I had to whittle it down. So, and I was in the garage at a certain point. You know, now going through different types of talks that I might do, and I got to a point where I said, okay, I think I got it. and I recorded it, and I hadn't showed anybody. I finally showed my wife, and my wife and I were walking at the time, and I was listening to her watch what I had recorded in the garage, and I could just see on her face, and I could hear what I was saying, and this was 7 days before the TEDx talk, and she didn't have to say it. I was like, "It's not good, is it?" And she kind of looked at me. She's like, "Yeah, it's really not." So I then just started ripping away anything that was superficial, anything that wasn't real, and what I was left with was basically what I delivered on that day. Now, when I go and I listened to it this morning, which was also a little hard for me to do before, just to prepare for that. Yeah. And I in the TEDx book, one of the things that the author said was, people will forgive you if you stumble over your words, as long as what you're saying is authentic and true, and your passion is driving them through a story. And so I kind of kept that in mind, giving myself the okay before the talk to say, hey, you might stumble, you might repeat yourself, but as long as you know where you're going, you're going to be fine.
Two questions come out of that. So you kind of already laid it out a little bit. How difficult was it to take all that information and decide what you had to delete, put it into a 17, 18-minute talk?
It was tough. It was hard. It was one of the harder things that I had to do. I'm looking forward to doing another TEDx talk. It'll be interesting to see my approach for that this time go around. But I printed all of out. It was like 60 pages of dictation of thought.
Wow. That's 2 days worth.
Yeah. So I don't even know. We went on our summer beach vacation. I remember having it in my lap with a pen, and now I'm crossing stuff out, but I'm writing more stuff. So yeah. It was not an easy thing, but that's part of the process of any athlete that comes into the athlete book. They go through a 2-minute career discovery assessment. It's an interesting self-experiment of self-discovery, and it'll show you your 2 most dominant traits. And my 2 most dominant traits are inventor, visionary. And so as it being so, I have a lot of ideas, which can be a blessing and a curse, because you have to focus yourself. Otherwise you're like, the Disney cartoon where the dog sees the squirrel. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You got to hone it in, and that was a difficult part of my process. But it's you have to go through that stuff to get onto the other side.
I find that interesting. Inventor, visionary. When you're telling your story, I was seeing some kind of analytical person, because if you had 60 pages of written notes to go through, you're pretty analytical about things.
Well, it's funny. One of the catalysts for me to leave JP Morgan Chase in 2015 to start the athlete book full time. I did a personality assessment with a professional who just looks at the data on the back end. This was a much more in-depth one. And he said, you need to partner with somebody who's an analyzer, someone who wants to do the research. I want to be out there with the ideas. I like to analyze my ideas, but when it comes to data sheets and analytics, that's where I need to partner with somebody who can complement my strengths.
I need to partner with somebody who wants to do the work.
Exactly.
So, jump into your TEDx a little bit, and going out of order, what I thought was going to happen, which kind of is always the case, but you talked about this 770 assessments. I think it came from Gallup, but maybe you did it. 770 assessments that you put out. That was your guess.
That was one of the athlete book's research.
Okay. And what was the number one strength? And I think I asked you that. I know what your answer is going to be, but I asked you that because we can quickly correlate it to something else.
Yeah. So just like I'm a visionary, the most 69%. Thank God I listed this TEDx this morning. I want to know these numbers. 69% were indicated as visionaries. And as I was saying in the earlier talk, it makes sense, because as an athlete, you have to visualize yourself playing at the next level, because it's not easy. And you have to visualize yourself winning There has to be that kind of endpoint in mind, a championship winning, even on the micro level from, if you have got a game on Saturday, win or lose, whatever happens that game, you got another game the next week. You have to visualize yourself performing optimally, making sure that you know the plays that you have to run. So yeah, I mean, the athletes by trait seem to be heavy on the visualization side.
So when you push that out to leaders, and you said something that's critical there, end in mind, you have to have a vision of how you want it to end up. So you're saying athletes, I remember seeing a long time ago, forget the gentleman's name, Edwin Moses, I think. He was actually laying on the tracks before the Olympics, and they said he was just visualizing his entire race, step for step, the entire race. So of course, he was so deep in his visualization, when it came time to run, he won. He won the gold. But you're saying that is just something that the more than successful, the elite athletes do, and maybe that's a trait that everyone should take a look at. How do you want to come out and visualize it?
You're conditioned to visualize with your coaches. I mean, game film sessions, and it's just hammered into you. I remember my brother was training for the Winter Olympics in the luge, and he's 8 years older than me. Luge is like the bobsled, going down the track. Yeah. And I remember him going like this with his head. And if you're just listening to this on audio, just nodding his head back and forth of where the turns are and so forth. That's kind of also always stuck with me in that regard.
Okay, because I can see that, because he's seeing the turns just like you as a leader can see the potential problems coming up, and then how you navigate through this. Very, very good. So visionary. What was next? 69%, that's more than 2/3, but what was right after that? Just out of curiosity, do you remember?
Oh, I would have to go back. I would be guessing if I did, but it's, anybody who's interested in taking this, it's the system guides you right to it. And right now for athletes, it's free. So they can go in there and it'll show them a series of 56 pictures. It's both based off the Holgram theory and related to the Big Five. And it's fascinating. And then after you take it takes 2 minutes. There's a 3-minute video, which I just recently produced, that walks you through what to look for. And these are important because, especially as a young person, when you go into an interview, most likely the interviewer is going to ask you, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. And if you, as a young person, can talk from a position of as self-reflection, like I've done the work, and based off of the work that I've done, these are the 3 strengths that are strongest. And you can talk about that, and you can tie that to a story or an example. That is going to impress the interviewer, because they're really not expecting somebody coming right out of school to be able to talk about themselves from that perspective.
I wonder if employers expect anyone to come out from that perspective, but that would be a very powerful spot to start in. Here's my strengths, and if you could put them into a story.
Yeah, right.
That's a really powerful perspective. And if you think about it, you had a great story in your TED Talk that is carrying it, and athletes have a pretty good story about what happened in their athletic career. So maybe that all helps. It comes together creating those stories. Because the one that's just on my mind right now is the guy screaming at you to forget about the cheese. Is just stop eating cheese. So, I just put that out there as a teaser so everybody can go listen to this and say, okay. So
he's now the head coach of a Georgetown lacrosse program too. They had a very successful season, but my senior year after break, I came back a few pounds too big. And he broke down, what are you eating? He said, stop eating so much cheese.
Stop eating it. And it sounded like he didn't say it very nicely.
He's a great guy, though. We love him.
Yeah, yep. When you looked at your research, you also, the Gallup, there's a Gallup result that you had. Yeah. Can you share that with us?
So, and I wanted to double check this is true. If you just Google how many people enjoy what they do or dislike what they do, Gallup poll, you'll see that 85% indicate that they dislike what they do. Oh, look at that. You got it right up. So I say in my TEDx talk, if you love what you do, then you represent the 15%. You're passionate about what you do. And another thing I mentioned in my talk is that passion is contagious, right? And so what can we do to get you to share your world? Share your world with others that are trying to figure it out. And I also talk about an example that happened while I was preparing for my talk when Kevin Hart, comedian, actor, mogul, was on the Joe Rogan podcast and said, Joe, I'm successful and I know the barriers that I had to get through this. I'm just going to share that. Not enough people are sharing information. And that's the other part of it. One, as an athlete, you have to, and as athletic departments, we have to measure how often athletes are getting exposed to worlds and perspectives outside of sports, ideally from people that are passionate and love what they do, because it's contagious. And so, since that TEDx talk, we've gotten about 20 different professionals to record content on our platform that we cut up and we put point attribution onto it so we can measure athletes going through, and we can gamify it by doing average points per team, putting the coaches on a leaderboard. Nobody wants to be on the leaderboard. So the football coach is on the bottom of that leaderboard. Guess what he's going to say? Hey, guys, this is not a good conversation that I want to have with the athletic director. And he can see his individual team leaderboard. Hey, these 5 athletes didn't do anything. And we also do virtual events. So now it's like, hey, you can go to that virtual event and get 50,000 points and jump up to the leaderboard. So it's encouraging that exploration process.
It's funny how gamification really can help people. Here's the question, though, that the reason why I captured that 1585 and the passion is contagious, because I think what you're saying is if you have passion, you can lead 85% of the people. That's what I took from it, but I'm not so sure that's what you're saying. But is that what
you certainly can influence them, right?
Okay.
Because what's better than, and I've had this before where I do a lot of career counseling with friends, family, people that reach out in our events. And it's so often, and it's heartbreaking when you see a talented person miserable in their role and stuck there because of the security that it provides. And the longer you stay in, the harder it is to get out. But how rewarding is it when you finally convince them to make that leave, take that risk, and then 6 months later, they've now joined the 15% and they're happy and you can see it. And it's like you can always recover from making a bad move if you can, but you don't want to be on your deathbed with regrets.
You can recover from that. No, that 85% that are not happy, how do they get through? I guess there was a time that I blocked out my mind when I wasn't doing what I was happy with. How do they get through the normal day? Is it just something they kind of blank out, and then in order to get through it, they connect with somebody else, some charismatic figure or something?
Autopilot, distractions, mobile phones, social media, pornography, alcoholism. I mean, these are the things that I think when you're in that 85%, you're more susceptible to falling into the vices and the dangers of society. And we all do it, but how oftentimes, if I go on, sometimes like the other day, I wanted to go onto Facebook Marketplace to find a weed whacker. All of a sudden, I hadn't been on Facebook in a while. I'm scrolling through my feed. I'm like, what am I doing here? I got things to do. We got, so, and that's where the grit that athletes have comes into play, knowing the end point, knowing the pursuit, because as a professional, no matter what you do, you just have to show up and you have to practice. You have to take the steps forward. And when you're passionate about your pursuit to the end point, you're more alert to the side streets of social media or the side streets of addiction. Because if I went out last night and had a bunch of drinks, it would be hard for me to have this conversation. So that's a side street, So how do they get through it? They do it in an unhealthy way, in my opinion, my guess as well.
Okay. Well, then on the same hand, these athletes, who have the passion, who are the tops of the top, while they're in that pursuit of athletic success, they're full of passion. But what's being done after that? Graduation from college or get the gold medal. How do we measure their success? And are we measuring, why aren't they being successful?
Yeah. It's such our whole message is that we need to be grooming and preparing while they're that athlete. Because and I said this in my TEDx talk, the thing about an athlete's passion specifically to the sport is that there's an end point. Like there's a point where they're going to be done competing. They could stay in the sport, broadcasting, coaching, athletic administration, but it's not the same thing as competing.
Right.
So they have to know that they're going to be writing that retirement letter, whether that goes out, out to the public or just to themselves. And they're going to have to be, the more they know, the more they've been exposed to the 15%, the better they will do with the identity transitional shift to what the next pursuit is. And that is our whole thing, because whether it be veterans, whether it be athletes, it's young people that have endured challenges consistently to meet a end goal in a time of their life that's in their early 20s. Those to me are the most valuable assets in our society to push us through the many challenges that we're facing, global warming, social unrest and all these other things, right? So we have to get the people that are passionate, professionally working in those fields, and they have to be engaged with them so that they know this is where I'm going next, and get involved from an apprenticeship and an internship level while they're still an athlete, even if it's micro. The micro internship now you can do in a day or a week, and get that exposure.
Right. That's interesting. I'm not familiar with micro internship. Tell us, that's just like a week or weekend of doing some form of work for a different company or something?
Yeah, different companies are starting to recognize it. We had Richard Hall, who works with the Clemson football team with their career development and life skills. If you're working if you're an athlete in that environment, football takes up so much of your life that Clemson's, I think it's the Paul Journey program. They've done a great job of getting just different companies and brands to provide little mini experiences so that the athlete can say, is this something that resonates with me or not?
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And that's also part of my job, right, is to be out there and sourcing those kinds of opportunities and helping the organizations shape and program that, right? And so how can we do it how can we help facilitate that so it's easy for the company, and so it's easy for the athletic department, it's easy for the athlete, and it's measurable on all accounts.
Okay. Now, this has come as a bit of a surprise because just yesterday we started the process within my company of our interns for the fall. And so you're saying you could help source that if there's other companies, my company, other companies that might be interested in sourcing interns on the micro level.
Yeah, we actually just released our job board last week, and it's funny. It's right in front of me right now.
Okay.
I did a LinkedIn post about it. When you post a job, you can put internship, seasonal, contract, permanent. So if it's an internship, you can lay out kind of the terms. What's really exciting, though, is at the time that we're recording this, tomorrow, the NCAA has to respond on name, image, likeness rules. Last week, the Supreme ruled unanimously that athletes get paid. So now there's this another category where we can help educate athletes on how to be business owners, what considerations, we could help athletic departments from a compliance perspective, but also if there's a auto dealership that wants an athlete to do a post, they can post that on our job board as an NIL opportunity.
That is powerful. That's powerful. I'll be reaching out to you as well. Then. So that's powerful.
And I think, and so one more thing on that is, a lot of people think that, well, it's only going to be the top 1% that have a large social following, but I don't think that's the case. I think that you can, even if it's a Division III or an Ivy League athlete, can maybe represent an employer brand. So that is possible. And again, those are the types of things that we're sourcing and trying to explore and see how we can help both sides.
Well, I would agree with you, because if we're thinking that we have to have a Division I elite athlete, they're going to give a testimonial. But it's not a better testimonial than watching another athlete or somebody else using your system, your product, your services. And if you can, I forget what they call it in the movies, but if you can have that Division III athlete posting social media about his success or her success with your product, not necessarily a testimonial, but showing you that this is how they're using it, it becomes a great thing. And I just say that off of just my recent experience with AI technology.
Yeah.
Seeing it being used by somebody I didn't know, but they're using it. So that might work for me. So there's a lot of angles there. How are we measuring their success, though? The athletes, the elite athletes, well, all athletes, how are we measuring their success after the game is over?
That's another, and I don't have the exact stat, but I believe that one of our competitors polled, it was like 200 or 300 athletic departments, and it was an alarming amount were not able to capture that data afterwards, meaning who has been employed. You have the exit survey as an athlete graduate, but how do we capture that? And the only way that I think makes the most sense is giving them really good reasons to wanting to stay engaged with the university so that you can survey them. And since that TEDx talk, one of the things that we've done is we started working with artists that usually work with architecture firms to render spaces. So if you're going to do a development project where you're going to build a building, these are the people that are saying, this is what it looks like. This is how this building's going to be rendered. And we've plugged them into a virtual event platform so that it's different than a Zoom, because you have different tables, right? And so there's only so many seats at a table, 3, 5, however many. If you double click on that table, you're in a conversation with other people that are sitting at that table. And so you have an alumni event with 500 people, but you can maintain that intimacy, and then you can bring people up to stage and highlight certain alumni. And so what we're working with athletic departments on is consulting with them on how to create engaging virtual experiences with the alumni. And the first thing that we've done, and there's why you want to do that is so many reasons. One, increase philanthropic funding, increase alumni mentorship, but also figure out what's our alumni base doing? What are they doing out there in the world, and how can we farm that from an opportunity perspective, but also get a sense of how many of our alumni wear, to answer your question, right? And so one of the things that we're doing with our companies, consulting with them on, is like, hey, when you have an away game, what you could be doing is you could be sharing, live streaming that game at each one of those tables, have it on mute, and have a current athlete actually streaming it, right? So now different alumni are sitting at the table. They're engaging with maybe people that they went to school with, or new people that they just met that they have the school or the sport in common. And in between game breaks, they can go up onto the main presentation stage and announce, a raffle or a giveaway or do an alumni highlight. And so creating moments like that are special, they're unique, they're different. And those are things that we're consulting on so that we can help schools find out, how do we measure what athletes are doing after, where can we help them, and so forth.
Well, that's a great method, because what you're basically doing when you're streaming things like that is telling a story. And I think people like to hear that and like to see a story, especially if it's talking about their old school, where their alumni at. What is Division One? Go ahead.
I just want to say, the most important thing in order to be able to find out about the alumni base is that you need to be able to create the valuable, consistent community. And that, so there's something in common with the school and the sport. And now that we've gone through these COVID times, people are more susceptible to engaging in virtual formats.
Right.
But now we have to create unique experiences in those virtual formats that go beyond Zoom, and that every school has to be thinking that way so that they can tap into the ultimate value of their alumni population. Because I think right now most schools are probably at a 10% or low, or even lower, and we can measure that engagement, over time.
Well, it's a whole new world now. I just saw yesterday where they're saying half of the planet goes on YouTube, Google, or Facebook every day. Half of the planet, and that says a lot. So
that's an 85% though.
Yeah, and that's because the 85% are just looking for entertainment or something to be an escape. So you mostly focus on Division I athletes. Is that correct? No, you do all. Okay.
Yeah. So
change that statement for all division athletes. What are we doing to support them?
So we run a monthly event that's Ignite Career Development, and that event is specifically for the audience of athletic administrators who support career development and life skills. And these people are salt of the earth. They, unfortunately, they are a one-to-many ratio. You have one of them, you have 600 athletes that you have to support.
Right. You tell a great story about that. How one new person had to support everybody. She's not going to be able to do it. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, to your point, I had a call with a young, 2-year out of school, and she is responsible for supporting the career growth for, I think it was like 472 athletes. That's tough. So these individuals come up with great programs. And the reason why we have this monthly event is so that we can share ideas and we can grow. And then also for us, obviously, ability for us to showcase, hey, here's what we have with the athlete book. We are not looking to replace your efforts. You are the composer. We are the ability so you can better measure, you can create gamification, you can access our professionals who are 15% of passion to come and deliver this information to your athletes. And, if you have a freshman that comes in working through that program with the athlete book, and they're getting access to these virtual events where they're meeting alumni, they're accessing these lessons from the 15%. They're going to be in a better spot when they graduate than if not, this isn't there. I make a reference, and I didn't do a good job in the TEDx of explaining this. I think this was at a point in the beginning of my TEDx talk where my anxiety was high. But you got to calm yourself down. And I work with a branding coach who watched that. He's like, halfway through your TEDx talk, you kind of got into it. But at the beginning, I said, athletes are like horse races, or like a racehorse. Sorry, meaning they have blinders on, and it's that, again, that pursuit to win. It's just the struggle of getting through their everyday life with school, sports, lifting weights, getting up early, staying up late, the whole thing. Boom, you're only seeing what's there. So when it becomes how fast you are, how strong you are, but also how much you're exploring, because we're measuring it. Well, the athlete may not like that, but we'll try to keep the content short, 2 to 5 minutes long. But by the time they're a senior, they've got exposure now to maybe 100 different types of perspectives of the 15% of people that are passionate. And what happens now? Their blinders come open. No longer are they just seeing like professions as coach or athletic administrator, or not that those are bad professions, but I'm just saying they're who their family's related to. Now all of a sudden they go, I never thought about that kind of industry, and this is somebody that delivered it and it was entertaining and so forth. So
wow.
How you support athletes.
I got to tell you, Ryan, what hits me about what you just said, habit number 6 from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, synergy. Create synergy. Athletes can be better prepared for the world, and they have this synergy with all levels of other passionate people. If you're a leader out there, why don't you give that same thing to your team? Because the 85% who are not interested right now, who don't really like it, but that synergy, they may, oh, wait a minute, I could do this. I like that. They have a synergy about it, or they at least will, they may not like it, but they don't want to let their teammate down. So therefore they'll go a little bit harder.
Yeah, that's it, that accountability to each other. The other thing that, and I think schools do a good job of this, but I think that, I think it's an area that we can also help facilitate is developing the leadership qualities with the athletes. If you made it to the collegiate level, whether you're in a local town or on a national level, I mean, what are you doing to bring that back to the youth sports organizations? And the more involvement you could have in the youth sports and just generally in the community, because you're a role model at that point. So what kind of coaching are we giving them to be leaders to the youth and in their local communities is key, because that's then again giving them more experience in the leadership side, making them better prepared for when they graduate.
Oh, that is so well put. So well put. I want to change the stream just a little bit here. I'm kind of curious because you touched a subject that's very important for athletes, and a lot of leaders can take these exact same lessons and apply to their team, whether they're doing hospitality or whatever line of business they're in. But I would like to know, how did this TEDx change your life?
That's a great question. I think that I was already on this path, and I think the TEDx was my chance to verbally put out there, hey, this is where I'm going. This is the intention. I mean, at the end of my TEDx talk, I talk about bringing together the measurability with the 15% of passion, and that's where I'm going, right? And so it's one now on my signature and my email, it says TEDx speaker on my LinkedIn, so there's that credibility factor. We wouldn't be talking if I didn't do that TEDx talk.
Right.
But what I'm proud of is that it wasn't like I got that TEDx talk and I can rest on my coattails. It was like, I got the TEDx talk.
Now it's time to go to work.
Now let's get to work. Let's get those passionate people onto the platform. So Heather Mitz is a 3-time gold medalist, soccer player, and she spoke at the same event. She did a great job. I encourage everybody to take a look at her TEDx talk, and I'll make an introduction so you can connect with her as well. But I reached out to her. Let's do something on bouncing back from injury is one of her topics. Let's get that up. So, and then the gentleman who asked me to do the TEDx, Dr. Dan Young, let's get him up. So it started in my immediate circle of getting people who had a message. Sometime Amazon got the Amazon Campus Recruiter. Let's talk about what are you saying in an information session, and then link it back to the job application link. So, between that, we started working with Royal Bank of Canada right now. So we've gotten some large companies, but we've also got some influencers with some very special messages. Something that's kind of near and dear to my heart here is I don't know if you can see that, but this is the McClendon Minority Leadership Initiative, and through that it's really it was like working in worlds that I wasn't working a part of, working with people that look differently from me and are in different worlds, and hearing about what's changed them. So it's not that it's changed my life in so much, but it just felt like the TEDx talk was part of the trajectory of now a year later from giving it, and looking back, it's like, man, all these amazing things have happened.
Okay, so all these amazing things are happening or did happen, but now I really want to know, how are you helping now? Okay, how are you making a difference right now?
So there's a lot of things I could touch on, but the first thing that comes to mind is my partnership with socialcontract.org, based out of Delaware. Socialcontract.org specializes in writing grants for government and independent agencies that will deploy that grant money to provide the largest social impact possible. they are in the same building as I am. And so once we had a chance to, I was talking to Rich Parson, was my entry into the organization. He played for the Redskins. He was at a standout at University of Maryland football player, played for the Redskins or the Raiders as well. And when he was done with the NFL, he went in to be a police officer. He was a case manager, and now he works for Social Contract. And what I realized was, and what I'm really excited about, yes, it's great to get an athlete a job at Amazon or at Tesla or JP Morgan Chase. Like I love that those companies are there and they've got great programs and are great educators into an early workforce. But what I'm really most excited about now is that through our partnership with socialcontract.org, the Athlete Books gamified learning management system and virtual event platform is providing education to the people on the ground that are working on homelessness, reducing gun violence, trauma and healing. So we're bringing in renowned experts and putting that into the learning management system. And it's now we've beyond just athletes, we're doing a little bit of a rebrand that will be Tab Professional Services, Tab Government Educational Services, so that we can help that recent graduate making $30,000 a year who's a case manager walking into a crazy situation in a broken down neighborhood. We need to give that individual the tools to be able to get those people in the right direction. And so now with this name, image, likeness changing, it's like, so now we've got all these problems. We've got government stimulus dollars coming in. When we have athletes that have influence that are going to be getting paid, and then when we're working with Amazon and hopefully, I don't want to misspeak, but hopefully Tesla, companies that have high volume jobs, right? So I just feel like we can be in this position where we can get athletes to talk about, bring awareness to these programs. We can get case managers educated from the top educators in the space to help solve some of these issues. And we can pull in our employer clients, Amazon, hopefully Tesla, other high volume employer companies that have a need to bring people in. So get those people that are homeless off the street, get them housing, get them jobs. It's crazy because this is real impact, I think. And it doesn't happen without the right partners wanting to get involved. And it feels like any professional that I talk to, how can we get them into the system of improvement and teaching?
Okay. That comes close to what I want you to do, though. I want you to tell us, what can we do to get a hold of you so you can put us into these different types of things? In other words, give us a commercial.
Yeah. So one is I'm on LinkedIn. So the best way to get in touch with me is direct message me on LinkedIn. Rayn Drummond, CEO and founder of the Athlete Book. The Athlete Book. Don't forget the.
But yeah.
You could also go to our site. We're about to do a total rebrand on the site. So when people look at the site, I'm like, oh, you are only getting about 1% of the total picture. But there is a contact us form there. We are changing our login so that not just an athlete can sign up, but anybody could sign up. If you want to get involved in our community, come to one of our events. We host events all the time, and you're going to be amazed because we've got really cool virtual spaces that we're doing these events in. And if you're one of those people that are passionate about what you're doing, you're associated to opportunity, you like the idea of hiring athletes, come to us. We're here for you.
There you go. That's a good commercial. That's a good commercial. And that's what I want to make sure that people are able to get a hold of you and make sure that they understand the process that's required. And because this is number one, I think it bleeds over from the elite athlete to the elite employee. And as long as we're doing a good job with it, I think that's how that's can work for us. So again, the Athlete Book, by you, of course. So put that all together. Here's my kind of wrap up question, which oftentimes turns out to be a long question, but we're going to ask you anyway. What question should I have asked you that I did not ask you?
This is just the first thing that popped in my mind, so I didn't have a response for this, but
no, because I didn't prepare you for it. So
yeah, what is the athlete book doing for the future? I mean, specifically when it comes to cryptocurrency, right? I think that there's a world in this as well. You probably didn't think I was going to go in this direction, but
no, but it's great.
We purchased NFTforathletes.com and NFTforathletics.com. And there's nothing up on those sites right now, but with this name, image, likeness rule change and athletes having all these new opportunities, for those of you that aren't familiar, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, there's a lot of different use cases for them. Actually, Glenn, I think we talked about this when we were in our early interview. I mean, book publishers can link their publication to the blockchain and maintain a royalty. So in that, a student buys a book, after the semester, they resell it. Typically, publishers don't see that resale value. Well, now linking it digitally on the blockchain, they can. And the same thing has happened with baseball, football, basketball trading cards. And so there's a big market that has opened up. And yes, it is 100% a bubble. I don't doubt that. But I do think that athletes will want to potentially what you call mint their own NFT tradable baseball card and release limited amounts. So if you're a star basketball player, people may think you're going to go into the pros. They can create a digital basically a baseball card with movable art and say there's only 10 of them, put them up for auction, put them out there. And then every time it gets resold ever in the future, they get a royalty on it. They get to set the royalty. So that's kind of complicated, right? Like getting my mind around that. What is going on here? So that is why the athlete book is going to be hosting fundraising in athletics. One of the main things that I've realized is all of the services that we have, they do cost money. But so in order for us to solve these problems, we have to help our athletic departments raise more money. And so, if you own iconic media, you can do that. These are things that you can do in those alumni engagement events. Put up an auction for something that means something to all those alumni. Joe Montana throwing a pass at Notre Dame. I don't know who owns that media, but that's something that you can NFT, raise money for to support your program. So we are in the process now of partnering with services in that space that can provide the education on crypto and NFTs and how it relates to fundraising and just fundraising tactics in general.
Well, and it's complicated. So I'm glad you're there in that space or building that space because it's complicated because mostly this is how we're getting rid of banks, the NFT process. So, and of course they don't want you to they want you to still put in, using your credit card and all that. So that NFT process is how we're getting rid of banks, I believe, how we're making the playing field even. So, but I'm glad you're in that space. It is going to be something that's very, difficult to learn, but very important to learn.
And I think it's important to note that I am not the one who's going to be delivering the education. And that's just like with any topic, right? It's like there's we only know what we know, so we have to partner with the leaders in the space that represent the 15% of people that are passionate to come onto our platform, teach it live, let us repurpose that in an evergreen, gamified fashion so that there's a long tail on their education and a long tail on the impact that their live message makes. And then for important categories, we're going to try to create monthly forums to bring a community of professionals that are interested in that space.
That's a powerful space. That's exactly one of the things our researchers are researching right now, is to figure that whole process out. Because you started that. You're the one who started that when we had our discussion a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So wait a minute.
I'm good. Yeah. That's why we have to have these conversations.
Yes, synergy. Yeah, and you're doing that all the way around. I have to absolutely thank you for your time. You're making a difference. I think it's really a transferable lesson because we all want to be elite. So I think it's a very transferable, powerful lesson. Appreciate your time with this. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you on board. Thank you.
Glenn, thank you so much. One, I'm so impressed with how dialed in you are with your automation with your guests. You make it really easy. And two, I hope that I can come back after I give my second TEDx talk. And three, I hope I can introduce you to some of my TEDx friends.
Well, one, thank you very much. I'm getting better at that. Two, you're more than welcome to come back, even if you don't do your TEDx talk right away, because there's more ground to be covered there. And three, I'll take the great content any day of the week.
Love it.
Thank you for connecting with us here at Touchstone Publishers. Please join our group Essential Leadership Skills and share your leadership knowledge with us all.